I sometimes receive emails asking me for advice. I have one such email that I'm not going to read, but I'm going to summarize it and I'm going to go through. It's a question by a follower of many years who's left Islam, and she's a mom and wondering how to deal with the challenges that come with raising kids after you leave Islam. This is a pretty hairy topic, but we're going to get into it. My wife and I are going to discuss this interesting challenge. I myself have raised 5 kids since I was a Muslim until now. So most of that time I was Muslim, some of that time I wasn't Muslim. And then as well for my wife, she recently left Islam and she also has a child to raise. So we're going to talk about the challenges there. Let's get into it. Okay, to start, before we get into it, on the last video, we had a lot of questions asking why you're not allowing your wife to go on video, what's going on, are you being a hypocrite? A lot of jokes about Ali Dawah and his whiteboard and how he doesn't let his wife speak. She has to write out something. In this case, we're going to be clear, the reason why my wife is not coming on the channel is because of the high profile nature of the work that I do and the consequences that come from doing such work. So we decided together, and especially her, she doesn't want to be on video on the channel. There's not a huge benefit to coming on camera and being public, whereas there's lots of negatives. So we came up with a compromise that she can still help with the channel, but more anonymously. So in order to maintain her privacy and respect, and because I've been through all of this, I've done this, and I've faced actual consequences from being public. I've had people call my employer. I mean, recently I got a complaint on my website, friendlyexmuslim.com, saying I'm spreading hate. It was a complaint to the ISP, meaning the internet provider, my web hosting company, to get rid of my website, which is hilarious because they're not going to get rid of me. But this is why we don't want to, have her on video. Do you want to add anything to that?
I think that you worded that perfectly, probably better than I could have. Yeah, it's just a matter of privacy, and I don't mind lending my voice and lending my thoughts, but I prefer to not appear on camera. So moving forward, that's how it's going to be.
Yeah, exactly. And, people sometimes ask me, although it's less common now because there's a lot of content online, but people sometimes ask, should I start a channel, a YouTube channel? And I always tell them, think about the consequences, right? Think about the social consequences. Even if you're living in the West and you have complete freedom, it's not against the law, there's always a risk of being canceled. So because of this sort of cancel culture, people will try to take you down. They'll try to ruin your life for doing this. So there's really no point, right? I mean, we can get the same benefit of her without having her on the camera. So let's get into it. So I had an email, as I said, that I received that had to do with this woman was saying she's very happy about her decision to leave Islam, but she's struggling with raising her kids, right? Teenager kids, and wondering how to navigate Muslim holidays such as Eid and other occasions, right? And she was also wondering if there's any such videos out there that talk about how to live your life after leaving Islam in a society. So there's a lot of different scenarios here. She could be living in a Muslim country, she could be living in a non-Muslim country, she could be out, she might not be out, we don't know the details, right? So we're gonna go and we're gonna try to address all the different possibilities, and then maybe we can do a follow-up video. So one thing I wanted to start with is I wanted to ask you to talk about how you struggled, or if you struggled, after leaving Islam with your child, because I know that she was in Islamic school at one point.
Things that I've struggled with as far as leaving with holidays and things like this.
Or even just like leaving Islam and having a Muslim raised child.
Yeah, well, my daughter is pretty young, so obviously I converted, so I have non-Muslim family who celebrate all of those holidays. I felt guilty having her participate in those holidays, right? And I also felt guilty.
Like Christmas.
Yeah, I felt guilty, and I mean, I was weird about.
But why?
Just because they consider it, it's not an Islamic holiday. You're only supposed to celebrate Ramadan and Eid, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, there's videos out there. You guys can find them, all the different scholars. They talk about, you know, it comes up every year. Converts, should I celebrate Christmas with my family? It's this whole big debacle. Even Mohammed Salah, that's his name, right? The famous soccer player, Egyptian soccer player. Yeah. Every single year, I mean, you want to like understand what it's like to, you know, try and like enjoy your life as a Muslim. Like he's not obviously like worshiping Jesus or anything, but he just posts a Christmas picture.
Yeah, Christmas tree.
Yeah, Christmas. Yeah, like with him and his wife and his kids, and every single year it's like the comments are the same. Yeah. It's like it never fails. So you do feel some sort of guilt, you know, when you see these posts and you read through these comments. But yeah, so. But
like, just want to jump in there. So it's interesting that you, as a fresh convert, right? You're in the Muslim community in America, and you're already feeling the pressure to drop all of the previous ceremonies, rituals, cultural / I mean, some of them were actually cultural, right? Like your family is not religious.
No.
But you felt like guilt about being involved in something you've done your whole life.
Not celebrating Christmas is something you can convince me to do willingly as a kid, but as a 24-year-old Muslim revert, guys, I'm throwing out my Christmas tree. I'm feeling all of the feels right now. I know that my Christmas tree has been a part of so many of my memories, and looking back at videos, it's kind of always been in the background, but it's just time for new memories, and it's time to create new memories. Alhamdulillah. Bye, guys.
Right.
Literally putting up a Christmas tree, which some might argue it's like pagan or something.
Right.
But like, that's not why we're doing it.
Right.
We're not trying to do anything about paganism. It's literally, that's what people do. You put up a Christmas tree, you buy gifts for your kids, and yet you're being shamed by the Muslim community. I don't know if like individuals actually told you, or if it's just you felt this pressure, because this is definitely a big thing among Salafis, where they're like, it's haram, it's haram. Sufis are a little bit more tolerant about this. But the fact that you're a new Muslim, you've already been hearing this, and you're already feeling a certain way about this, right?
Right. Yeah, I definitely felt pressure. Like, I'm trying to remember if anybody said anything to me specifically. There is that feeling of pressure, like in the air, like it's there, right? I'm trying to remember if anybody said anything to me specifically. I'm thinking probably yes, like out of all the people that I connected with and talked to over the years. But it's like, it's more like something like you have to kind of hide, right? Like some of my best memories growing up in my adult life, and even like when my daughter was born, was going to my grandma's house for Christmas. And like my family, they're not even like cultural Christians. Like it's just, it's.
What do you mean they're not even cultural?
Like they're Christian, like technically speaking, right? But they don't practice anything. They don't do anything. It's just a label that's there.
Isn't that what you call cultural Christians then?
I think like a culture. Yeah. I guess you could say like, I guess like cultural, maybe they do something Christian like they go to church for midnight mass or something. We used to do that when I was younger, but like they're not even that. Like when people in my family die and there's a funeral, like they have a pastor come there and, you know, do everything for the funeral, for the burial. That's it. That's about as Christian as we are, right? But still, it's like regardless, like if you tell Muslims you're going over to your family's house for Christmas, your grandparents, they're gonna say something. Yeah. Right. So that's about like what I celebrated, but I still would not say anything to anybody.
Yeah, I used to wonder, because we used to get gifts from my in-laws for Christmas, and I used to wonder, like, is this even halal, accepting Christmas gifts? And eventually I convinced myself it was halal because it's free stuff.
Right.
It's a
yeah.
Gift, a gift's a gift.
Yeah.
But I couldn't give them Christmas gifts.
Right.
So it's like kind of weird, right? Like you can just, it's almost, it's awkward because again, you feel guilty. I also used to feel, you know, this is kind of like a very hardline position, but I also used to feel guilty about feeding people in Ramadan, which is kind of a different topic from what we're talking about now. But as a Muslim, we used to have people come to her house in the middle of the day, non-Muslims from her family. It was like, can we feed him? Technically, you're actually helping him sin. I mean, some Muslims will say it's fine, but there are opinions out there that say that you can't feed anyone in Ramadan if they're supposed to be fasting, even if they're not Muslim.
Interesting.
But anyway, so going back to the topic.
So, I mean, even aside from like actual holidays, even birthdays, I've always celebrated my daughter's birthday. I've always had a party for her, a cake for her. But I've met Muslims you know, that's like another thing you have to dance around. Like if I want to have a birthday party, there's a lot of them who don't celebrate birthdays. So therefore it's like, it's awkward. Like, do I invite them to be nice? Like, do I just, like, I've encountered this too.
Yeah.
You know, so my daughter had like a big birthday party for her 5th birthday. And I brought one of my best friends with me who is also like, she was a convert, but she's not like practicing or anything like that anymore. But she wants to have fun and I want to have fun. And I figured like it was better just to have her and I go with our kids. We'd have fun as opposed to like what I was originally going to do. I was going to invite her classmates from the Islamic school. But I figured, I was like, you know what? I'm not even going to bother because I might like offend them. They might like think something of me for celebrating a birthday. Like, I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to skip all this. I'm going to invite somebody who I know is going to appreciate this and have fun.
Yeah.
And who will enjoy, you know, her birthday with her.
Yeah. And she was Muslim too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But she's not like practicing or anything anymore.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. Interesting. So this is some of the challenges. As you can see, this is a whole topic. Is it okay to be involved? Now we've focused around, you know, birthdays and non-Muslim celebrations, but what about Muslim celebrations like Eid? What do you think? Is it okay as an atheist, or not even if you're atheist, just an ex-Muslim, let's say, to celebrate Eid?
Yeah, I do think it's okay. If you would have asked me this like a year ago, like when I first left, I would have been like, no way. Like, I don't want anything to do with religion. I don't want to be near any types of gatherings like this or holidays. Like, I don't want anything to do with it at all. Nothing at all. But, you know, over time and being with you, you know, my mind has changed. I have softened up to the idea a lot. Like, the way I see it, it's kind of like, again, it's like Christmas. It's like Easter. It's like any of those holidays. You know, it's what you want to make it. Yeah. Right? Yeah. It also depends on a lot of things, like how religious is your family? Do they know that you left? But I'm not against it at all. It's a good way for kids to get together and socialize, you know, the social skills training and seeing family and like getting gifts. And it's a good way to bring people together. Yeah. That's the way I see it. And if my daughter enjoys that and she likes that, I'm okay with it. Yeah. Right?
Why were you originally against it?
I think the hurt like I felt from the community and the issues that I had with the religion, with the sources, everything like that. It was something that I wanted to distance myself from, like, as much as humanly possible. So it's kind of like when you lose somebody and, you know, initially, like, you might feel like anger, you might feel like, you know, depressed, you might feel all these different things, kind of like Kubler-Ross, right? Her 5 stages of death and dying, like grief. Like, you kind of feel that when you leave your religion. Yeah. So I think I was too, like, it was too raw for me to be open to that idea.
Right. Yeah. And so just to be clear, we're not saying this is all personal experiences and feelings. We're not telling anyone that you shouldn't do this or you should do this. This is what she was feeling. Frankly speaking, I'm a big fan of making those celebrations more secular, in the sense of like what has happened with Christmas, how people just go whether they're religious or not religious. Now, there's always a pushback, you know, keep Christ in Christmas, you know, you see those people as well. But in my opinion, I would love it if ex-Muslims or agnostic Muslims or former Muslims or cultural Muslims, all of these people just celebrate Eid, right? Like, I think there are problematic things in Eid too. For example, the whole animal slaughter ritual. I think you actually made a really good point, which is that should just become a token sacrifice now. It shouldn't have to be an actual animal, or you don't have to have like thousands of animals being killed on that one day. Right. Which is like,
there's ways to make it symbolic, right? Like even like Lent, right? People give up something for Lent, but it's like, it doesn't have to be something extreme as like slaughtering an animal. Like there is like other ways to like give things up. Like, and sometimes I've met people who've given stuff up like one side of the week or the whole Lent. It's whatever you want to make it to be. And that's kind of what this should be as well. Right. Yeah. But I do think like as more people like leave Islam, you know, this will eventually become normalized to just celebrate it in
Yeah.
the way that people celebrate Christmas. And that's
Exactly.
fine. There is nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, when you think about Eid al-Adha, the funny thing is, like, this is exactly what would have made sense for someone living in the desert. This is the typical type of sacrifice they would do when someone comes over.
Right.
Sacrifice an animal. Abraham in the Quran sacrificed an animal for his guests, the angels or whatever, right?
Right.
He didn't know that. Poor guy killed the animal for no reason. But anyways, but the point is, it makes sense in that cultural context of you have animals, here you go, kill one of them, it's a sacrifice to God. And it's kind of like paganism, but with Allah, right?
Yeah.
Like it's killing an animal for God, which is interesting. But today, it doesn't really make sense. Most of us don't have animals. So
Yeah.
we're literally buying animals just to kill them, and like, I'm not against this. This always comes up, like, are you vegan? Like, well, how dare you complain about this if you eat meat every day? Like, you just ate like burgers last night or whatever. And the problem is not eating meat. The problem is the ritual sacrifice that's like unnecessary.
Yeah.
That's the thing that we're complaining about. Like, eat meat if you want to eat meat. If you don't want to eat meat, by all means, be empowered not to eat meat. But like a ritual sacrifice for the sake of God, that doesn't make any sense to kill animals for God.
Right.
That was my problem with it.
Yeah, there's a family that I know, and I went over their house a few times for Eid al-Adha. I don't know if I ever told you this story. They used to keep a sheep in their garage, and I watched the mother slit its throat. Like, I watched this 2 different times. Like, they kept it in the garage, like penned up, like it didn't have much space to move.
Yeah.
And then when that day came, I watched the mom, who wore like niqab, everything, go in there and like slit its throat, and then like, I don't know,
Is
like
that
an hour.
even legal?
I don't know. Well, a lot of these people, they go to farms.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's legal, but
Yeah.
I guess nobody knows. How is anybody gonna know you have a sheep in your garage penned up like that? But it's kind of like, it's kind of awful. Like, I literally watched this animal die.
Yeah.
You know?
And I've heard stories of how Muslims do that with the kids. I even know one guy, Muslim guy, that was like, went off meat completely for a long time after his parents had a sheep or something, and they raised it, and then he saw it being killed after he became friendly with it. So, I mean, it depends. I mean, I do think that sometimes people laugh at this and they're like, oh, what's the big deal? Like, but they don't, we have this empathy towards other animals because they're like us. Right. So that's not something to laugh. That's not necessarily a good thing that you don't feel anything when you kill an animal. It's probably a good thing that your kids feel sympathetic for the animal, because that's a very human thing to feel sympathetic, because they look like us. They even have a lot of the same bodily functions and so obviously, and then anyways, let's not get into the whole vegan thing right now. But like, you had an interesting point, which was by giving up Islam, you open them up to be involved in other holidays.
Right. I'm okay with Eid. With my daughter, like going to a celebration or somebody's house or the park or wherever, receiving gifts, I'm fine with that. But yeah. She likes that.
Yeah.
But yeah, just the rest of these holidays, Christmas, Easter, Valentine's Day, Halloween. I love Halloween. I'm not gonna lie. I love Halloween. That's my favorite holiday.
Yeah.
But again, it's what you make it.
Yeah.
Like, I know of people who would put signs in their doors, like, no Halloween here. Yeah. Like, they don't want trick-or-treaters even like coming. They won't hand out candy. Like,
did you find any Christians ever do that in your community back home?
No, because that's more like a fundy thing, I feel like.
Fundy meaning?
Fundamentalist Christians, yeah.
You didn't have any of those?
I didn't know any personally. Oh, okay. I mean, they're out there, of course. Like, I've seen it on Instagram and stuff, and but I've never personally known anybody who was like that. And I just, again, it's what you make it.
Yeah.
Do you want to make it, like, if you're looking for these things that it's demonic or, whatever, I mean, that's how you're going to see it. But the way I see it is, it's a fun opportunity. It's social skills training too. Like, my daughter goes to people's doors, knocks, says thank you, learns manners, and gets her candy. And I mean, we always have fun.
Yeah.
There's nothing bad about this stuff, but by allowing your children to open up to these types of things, you're giving them good experience and good memories.
Yeah.
Rather than depriving them. There's nothing bad about this stuff. And you know what? I went trick-or-treating couple of years ago and I saw Muslims actually doing it because I think that they feel bad. Like they realize there's nothing wrong with this.
Yeah. Well,
right?
the Muslim thing, you know, you were asking me, do people do trick-or-treating over here in my community, in our new community where we live in? And I was like, everyone does it. And you're like, wow, there's so many Muslims here. And I'm like, yeah, they all do it, right? Now, I do know, now the interesting thing is the difference between the fundies. You don't know any Christians personally that don't do it. I know like a ton of Muslims that don't do Halloween. So that, again, shows you the difference between the Muslim community and the Christian community. Christian community, by and large, has moved past this.
Right.
As the Muslim community, you still have, like I've heard people say Halloween is all about begging. I don't want to teach my kids to be beggars.
Right.
But like, it's like you're also giving out candies.
Right.
So like it equalizes. Like
Yeah.
you give out candies and they take candies. So it's like a community thing. It's a bonding thing for the community. You get to know the neighbors actually. That's one time you literally talk to your neighbors.
Yeah, and there's all kinds of older people who are just so sweet and,
Yeah.
and innocent, just nice older people who enjoy seeing little kids,
Yeah.
right? And they love handing out candy to them.
Yeah.
And again, it's like if they say you're teaching them to be beggars, it's like where do you see that behavior in your children afterwards? Do they start knocking on people's doors and begging? No, they don't.
Yeah.
You know, but again, this is the problem with Islam. Islam isn't allowed to change. And that's why.
How dare you say problem with Islam?
But yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting though. Islam does change actually, but also people don't want to admit that. Unlike other religions, they don't want to admit Islam does change. It has changed, but you're right. There's a meme of Islam can't change, right? You know, it's kind of funny. You were saying Halloween's your favorite holiday. Of course, me being ex-Muslim, I go for like someone that Halloween is a favorite holiday. It's like so satanic. It's like, of course, he went for the satanic woman. Okay, so jokes aside, going back to celebrating Eid, we discussed there's a lot of nuance in what you allow or don't allow in the sense of boundaries, right? Like can you want to explain that a bit? Like what did you mean by that with boundaries being maintained?
So, you know, even now, boundaries with me and my child is, you know, if I'm going to allow my child to, you know, go to these types of Eid events and parties, whatever, I don't want anybody trying to force her to do religious things that she doesn't typically normally do in her everyday life, right? Mm-hmm. So that would be a problem with me personally. Like, even when my daughter went to Islamic school, having a daughter especially woke me up because I have pictures of my daughter in Islamic school because they used to send us pictures. Yeah. My daughter, she doesn't like loud noises. She covers her ears. She doesn't want to wear anything on her head. Yeah. There's pictures of all these little girls lined up praying with hijabs on, and my daughter would not wear it. I saw that. Her teacher even told me she wouldn't wear it. Yeah. So if somebody's trying to force anything onto my child, I don't want that for her. That's my boundary, right? If she wants to do it just for funsies, like wear it, whatever. Yeah. But if somebody's trying to, you know, secretly, like, well, not secretly, but like indoctrinate her, like, you know, pressure her into these things or just coerce her, I don't want that for her, right? Yeah, we have, you know, obviously you've been pulled into this now with my family, but my family is pretty cool overall. Overall, they're very cool, but we do have some very religious people in my family, as you know. Yeah. And you cannot skip a day without getting dawah. Like, you can skip a day, but like every time you see them, they're like trying to give dawah, which is kind of funny, right? But at the same time, you know, I don't talk to little kids about religion. I have, like, my daughter has a lot of Muslim friends. I would never, ever dare to bring up Islam with her friends. I just would not do that. It's just not right. It just does not feel right to me to bring it. But at the same time, I also expect that you're not going to be telling my kid about Islam and hell and this and that. Like, you know, if you do, I'm going to tell them, like, this is dumb. Like, I'm going to literally undo what you did because they live with me, not with you. They see you once in a while. You're not going to convince them like that. Although there is a small chance that they may end up growing up Muslim. That's up to them. But I'm going to continue to tell them. I mean, honestly, there's like a 0% chance with the fact that, like, who I am and, like, we have these authentic experiences. They saw, right? Like, they saw me change. And so there's this whole, like, transformation. Why would he just do that, right? And I have, like, good reasons.
the point is, I'm not scared. I'm not like threatened by Islam. In the beginning, actually, I'm not going to mention that personal story. But anyways, sometimes, I was kind of wondering at some point, but then I'm like, you know what? Nothing's going to happen. It's up to them at the end of the day once they grow up. But for now, obviously, because they're young, I wouldn't want anyone to force them to pray or, make them do things they don't want to do. If they want to pray with the cousins or whatever, by all means, go ahead. It's almost cute, but definitely that's more like a social thing, right? Rather than like a religious thing, because it's almost like they have the benefits. They're like a privileged Muslim in the sense that they don't have to. They can do what they choose to do. No one's forcing them. So if they want to do it, they do it. If they don't want to do it, they don't do it. And if they do it, I'm gonna ask them hey, why are you doing this? Are you worried about going to hell or something? Of course they don't. They don't care. They don't believe in hell. But yeah.
Listen, if it goes both ways.
Mm-hmm.
When we're hanging out with your family or anybody who's Muslim, we're not pushing onto them what we think. And we expect that in return, right?
Exactly, yeah.
We just want to simply get together, have a nice time, eat together, talk, and we're happy and we go home.
Yep.
We're not trying to tell them what to do, and we don't want to be told what to do either, right? Mm-hmm. But again, it's, if my daughter does grow up and wants to, follow Islam, I highly doubt she will.
Yeah.
Again, just because of the way that I am now.
Yeah.
And she's a woman. So, but I mean, I can't say that, that I would be angry about that. It's going to be her choice ultimately. Even if she did want to practice, I don't think it would happen for very long. Yeah. To be honest, I don't.
Yeah, because there's so many more negatives to doing it than positives. And usually, I mean, what we've been seeing as we've been doing some of these response videos is a lot of these people that convert to Islam, they're lacking something in their lives. I mean, it sounds like actually it could be as simple as they don't have a good relationship with their dads.
Yes.
And so the seeking, and it's interesting because I also, when I went for therapy, I was really surprised that my therapist said this. She's like, you had my dad basically and my mom broke up when I was young. So I didn't have a dad. I mean, I had a dad around and we used to see him on the weekends or whatever. But there was my mom was very, easygoing, laissez-faire parenting, let me do whatever I want, more or less. So I didn't have any sort of authoritative parenting in my life because my dad couldn't parent me from afar. So I ended up replacing him with Islam. I went from basically, I replaced my dad with a high control religion. And that gave me a lot of structure back in my life. And so people that convert to Islam, usually they're lacking something. They're missing something in their lives. I mean, normal, well-adjusted people that are happy and doing well, I highly doubt they're going to go. And there's some examples of people I've interviewed on my channel. Some of them went back to Islam and they leave Islam again. A lot of these people, they can't, intellectually make it make sense. They feel good being Muslim and they have this community and they're almost worshipped by the community for being converts. They're put on a pedestal, but they don't a lot of the things don't make sense. Some of them, there's one sort of famous TikToker that I'm not going to mention his name, but he was really upset about the LGBT thing and how, Muslims are bashing, these people. And so he kind of left Islam and he kind of went back and he's depressed and this and that. And then he got a bunch of money from the Muslim community. That's another thing. There's usually some sort of financial benefit to becoming Muslim for some of these people.
Right.
So it just doesn't really, I just don't see it happening. But anyways, to the point of, teaching your kids, we mentioned, there's different scenarios. So in a non-Muslim country, you teach your kid to be respectful and kind. Don't. I don't make fun of Islam to people's faces. I have my own views on my own platform. I can say whatever I want. It's like coming to my house. You're gonna understand that I can say what I want, but I don't go to your house and I'm not that angry atheist uncle that makes a scene.
Right.
I don't want to make a scene. I don't even want to talk about I don't even want to talk about Islam at family gatherings.
Right.
That's not my thing. Everyone knows my views. They can look it up. It's I don't even need to talk about it. Just go check my blog, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm the token white girl. Yeah. So there's nobody suspects that I even was Muslim to begin with. So
yeah.
But yeah, we don't go to family events or anything like this talking about Islam or preaching our views.
Yep.
But if you are going to spend, time with your Muslim family for these types of holidays as a mom, you're bringing your kids, it depends on what kind of, relationship you have with them, if they know that you left. But, it might be a good idea to kind of set boundaries in terms of how much time you spend there. Mm-hmm. If they have something that's going on all day, well, maybe arrive like, an hour or two before like it ends, or like spend an hour or two there. You don't have to feel obligated to spend the entire day with family that might make you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right? You can go there, you can see your family, you can, be respectful, you can, share a meal with them, whatever, and then you can leave, Yeah,
like I do agree too that part of it is just setting boundaries, right? It's just letting them know that I'm not praying anymore, I'm not interested in that, but I'm happy to visit. In a religious Muslim country, I would just say keep your views to yourself. Like personally, I don't think there's any reason to risk, it depends on the personal situations, but I'd say that should be like the default. Just don't even bring it up. Just don't even tell anyone. If you have to pretend. Unless you have enough autonomy, safety, security, and ability to really not worry about any sort of, consequences to that. But overall, it's up to you. In a non-Muslim country, I know some ex-Muslims don't tell their parents. I could never do that. I just told them and I just accepted. And, they got upset and they got over it. Some parents never get over it. So it depends. And the other thing is that's so important is when you leave Islam, making new friends is so important because you need to have the ability to have social, because we are social creatures and we need that. So we need to make new friends. We need to go out. I mean, we go out with my friends all the time. A lot of them are ex-Muslim and we have fun. We go out for dinner, we go to the house, or we have like, fun events with the kids. The kids get to meet each other. That's like super important. In our community, we have an ex-Muslim chapter, ex-Muslims of Toronto. So we are part of that. But in your community, if you don't, you don't have to limit yourself to ex-Muslims. You can just make friends from the office. You can go and do social events, for example, like running. There was that running event that was happening, right. Stuff like that, right?
Right. Yeah, everybody wants to belong to something. Like we're all hardwired for that.
Yeah.
But when you leave this religion, you kind of feel like you're losing a community. You're like you're losing a sense of belonging. So you need to recreate a sense of belonging elsewhere, right? Even, when you make new friends or, you can start new traditions, if you have friends that you feel like you trust enough or feel comfortable enough to confide in about these things, maybe plan something with them, like after you see your family, to kind of talk about things, decompress, and I think like practicing self-care works a lot too. It helps. When you come home, you can have some type of like light a candle, read a book, relax. You don't have to
socialize.
Yeah, you don't have to socialize.
Yeah. You're more introverted. Actually, we're both introverted, which is interesting. Obviously, I didn't get into the whole thing about if your ex is still Muslim, and if they're part of their lives, and how to deal with that. But I think in general, if someone's wondering, my approach has always been like, say your kids are Muslim even, right? Like literally they're like, I want to be Muslim. My approach has always been like, play the long game. Let them do what they want to do and be there for them. Let them understand that this, if they want to discuss it with you, then you discuss it with them. If not, accept them and help them out however you can and let them be. That's my approach. Like, I'm not going to force anyone to not be Muslim or something like that. If the ex is putting them in things, obviously you can communicate your displeasure for, like, say she wants to put them in Quran classes or something. There's only so much you can do. But at the same time, play the long game. Teach them rationality. Teach them critical thinking. And ultimately, if they have a good head on their shoulders, they're going to leave Islam anyways.
Right.
No matter how much Quran they memorize, no matter how much indoctrination they put in them, they're going to see through it if you continue to have this approach, right?
Right. Because Islam is so rigid.
Yeah.
Right. So, and if you have one parent who is rigid with religion versus the other who is flexible and not practicing any of this, like who do you think the kids are gonna, you know, want to, you know, be on? Whose side are they gonna be on, like, so to speak, right? They're not gonna want to be tied to all of this ritual and all these rigid rules. So
yeah, there's one thing actually we have an advantage in a situation like this, right?
Yeah.
It is difficult to leave Islam. It is challenging. There's a lot to manage, but your life is going to be so much better once you do. You can let go of all of these useless dogmas and keep the rituals you want to keep, right? Like if you want to wash your butt after using the washroom, you can still do that. If you don't want to do something, if you don't want to celebrate Eid, don't celebrate it. But the fact is that you are now the boss. You are no longer leaving someone else in charge of your life, who is Muhammad and the scholars and all of the people that made Islam to what it is. You get to be the one to steer the ship and take it in the direction that you want to be, that you want. You don't need to live according to someone else's rules. Make your own rules. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was helpful. Thanks for watching. This is your friendly ex-Muslim Abdullah, Samir, and Wifey signing out.
Bye.